Okay, so we're on the second page of our notes. I'm looking at this problem. This side right here is the side that we need to manipulate. So I'm going to hang on to this side, and I'm going to manipulate this side. Now, if you notice the side that we're leaving alone, it's sine. So we want to plug in sine and cosines, in here so that we can hopefully get to the other side. So notice, something else I want you to notice is you see these little plus signs? If it had a minus sign, that would be an identity. All of these would be an identity if they had minus signs, but they don't. They have plus signs. Don't just you need to look at your identity sheet. You just don't sub in unless you actually have those exact orientation, those exact numbers. That needs to have a minus sign. Okay, so cosecant is 1 over sine, so 1 plus 1 over sine squared of theta. And the bottom one is going to be 1 plus cotangent is sine, as actually cosine squared of theta. Cosine squared of theta over sine squared of theta. Okay, clearly we're going to get a common denominator here if we're going to be able to simplify this. So we're just going to hang on to this right here. And our common denominator needs to be sine squared of theta over sine squared of theta, because that's the denominator that we have there. And I'll just rewrite that. And on the bottom, we need another sine squared of theta over sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta over sine squared. All right, so now if you are paying attention, you have an identity right there. Okay, that's 1. So I could go ahead and simplify a little bit to sine squared of theta plus 1 over sine squared of theta all over 1 over sine squared of theta. Sorry, I ran into that problem with the bottom. I just subbed in a 1 for all of that. Now when you flip and multiply, your sine squareds are going to cancel. So if I flip, then the 1's going to be on the bottom and the sine squared of theta is on the top if I flip and multiply. So that's going to cancel. This is your main fraction line. And I'm left with actually what I'm trying to work towards, which is 1 plus sine squared of theta. So I'm there. When I flipped and multiplied, I got there. Okay, this next one, it is, if you look at it, I might erase just a tad so I can see, but notice that this side right here is sine and cosine, and so we want everything in terms of sine and cosine, so we're going to sub sine and cosines in here, and we're going to sub in the quotient identities, which is sine over cosine and cosine over sine, and get a common denominator, and that one's going to pan out. And if you look in your notes, you can see them finish work. I'll let you go look there and finish working out, but that's how the strategy on that one. Okay, this one is a little bit different than any of the other ones we've worked before. So this does not have a denominator, and this is a fraction. It would be hard for me to, and maybe it wouldn't, I don't know. There's always lots of ways to do these, but it seems like it would be harder for me to take and change into a fraction than change a fraction into, a whole number. So I feel like I should work off of this side first. Now, notice that I don't want to make everything sine and cosine because this is not sine and cosine. So I have to switch strategies when I look at where I'm headed. There's something that you can do that you probably don't know. You see that we have squared things here. So what I need to do is I need to multiply by 1 plus cosine of A over 1 plus cosine of A, which that is just 1, and so it's legal for me to do that. But the point of me doing that is it makes me have squares, and it'll also get rid of the denominator. So when I work it out, you'll kind of see what's going on here. I'm just going to rewrite the top as this. If I have to write it out twice and FOIL it, I can do that in a minute, but I just want to write it like that. And then when I FOIL this right here, 1 times 1, I'm FOILing first terms, I get 1. And then my outside terms, I get a positive cosine of A. And then my inside term, I get a negative cosine of A. And then when I multiply my negative and these two together, I get a negative cosine squared of A. These cancel, and that's why I went this route, because I wanted to try to get rid of cosine of A. So what I'm left with on the top, I'm going to just rewrite what we already have up there. Again, look back to see, where am I headed? What am I trying to get? This right here is an identity. So if you don't know, this is a rewrite of sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta equals 1. And I'm just going to subtract that over. So it's equal to sine squared of theta. So I'm going to do my little rewrite here. Okay, I'm still not there. Things can't cancel. Now, let me show you something that you can do. Like, if I have like an x squared and I have an a squared, let's say, that's the same thing as x and a squared. So this is squared, this is squared. So I'm going to rewrite that as 1 plus cosine of a. This will give me the power to split them apart, and I think it's going to get us there. So now I can split, they're both squared individually, or they can be squared individually or together, and so I'm together. So what this does is it allows me to say 1 over sine of A plus cosine of A over sine of A. And that's squared. Now I want you to look at where we're headed. Go back over here. Look at where we're headed. We are really close because cosecant is the same as 1 over sine and cotangent. And so we're there. All right, so we just need to come and write. This is cosecant of A, and this is cotangent of A, and it is squared. So I'm there. All right, last one, and that one is an unusual situation. I just going to try some different things, and so this is a strategy that you might use. I'll probably point out whenever we're, if you have a question, if you're using the strategy on number 9, we might look at our homework problems and see where we're going to use that strategy. Okay, this is the last one, and I'm looking, there's really, to me, it's just screaming. There's really only one side I can work off of, and that's this one. I can make this one maybe hopefully look like that one. Okay, we're going to need to get a common denominator. Everything is in terms of sine and cosine, but this right here, you might just keep in mind that this is the same thing as 2 over 1 over sine of y, or 2 over sine of y. This right here, so that, kind of gives you an idea of maybe a step that we're going to get to, or whatever, what it could possibly look like before it looks like that. Okay, so we need a common denominator. The common denominator is both of these things. So it needs to be 1 minus cosine of y times sine of y. And then, so this one right here needs a sine of y over sine of y. And this one right here needs the 1 minus cosine of y. 1 minus cosine of y. I just write it there because it's easier for me to to go ahead and tend to it. So this will leave me with sine squared of y. And then I'm going to have to, I'm just going to go ahead and write this part out. I'm going to have to FOIL this. Okay. Now in the last, now we can actually, we should have a plus sign somewhere. We should have a plus sign right here. And I know, I'm just speaking to Maggie. Maggie, I want you to smile. You can't cancel those. I know you want to. I know you want to go and do this and this, but you can't because it's killing a cat because of that plus sign right there. And I almost lost it because I kind of, just the way I showed my work, it kind of got lost. Okay, I'm going to have, if I write that like this, like we did in that last one, I feel like that's not going to get us to our goal. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL that, because if I FOIL that, I'll end up getting a cosine squared of y, and it'll make 1 with this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL that. So I have sine squared of y plus, and I'm going to FOIL this. So this gives me 1 right here, 1. And then my middle term is going to be 2 cosine of y, because I'll have 1 cosine of y here and another negative cosine of y there. And so it gives me 2 of the negative cosine y's, 2 of them. And then I'm going to be left with a positive cosine squared of y all over. And I'm going to leave the bottom alone in hopes, because I want it to cancel and I want it to look like this. You know, that's your goal, is to get it kind of looking like that. So I'm just going to rewrite. Okay, so this and this is 1. So I have 1 plus 1 minus 2 cosine of y all over 1 minus cosine of y times sine of y. Go ahead and add those. That makes 2. So you have 2 minus 2 cosine of y all over 1 minus cosine of y sine of y. Again, let's take a moment and look at where we're headed. I want to have a 2 on the top, and I want just a sine of y over the bottom. Well, look, if I factor out a 2, 1 minus cosine of y, it cancels. Now we can cancel